Welcome to this week's episode. I hope your week has been full of joy and major successes. Now, if you've ever worried about giving a presentation or speaking in public, I think you'll find this week's podcast pretty helpful. I'm going to give you some helpful tips to successful presentations and keeping your audience interested, and give you 50 key phrases that you'll use in many different types of presentations or talks. Just before we start, a quick reminder that my British accent training package, the British Accent Bundle, is on sale for the lowest price ever. Now do get your hands on it before the price goes up. The link is in the show notes, but you can go to learningbritishaccent.com/bundle and purchase it there. So, once you've done that, let's head over to Section 1. Section 1. Presenting like a pro. Tips for successful presentations. Presentations are an essential part of life, whether you're in school, work, or even just giving a speech at a friend's wedding. They can be formal, informal, impromptu, or even virtual. Whatever the occasion, a good presentation can make all the difference in how you're perceived by your audience. So let's talk about the different types of presentations. First, there are formal presentations that you might give in a classroom or conference room setting. These presentations are typically planned out in advance and follow a structured format, with slides or handouts to help convey your message. Then there are informal presentations, which might happen in a more casual setting, like a meeting with colleagues or a social event. These presentations are often more conversational in tone and might not follow a strict format. And finally, there are impromptu presentations, which happen on the spot without any warning. These can be particularly challenging, but with some quick thinking and preparation, you can still deliver a successful presentation. Now, let's move on to the important part, how to prepare for a successful presentation. Whether you're giving a formal or informal presentation, there are some key steps you can take to make sure you're ready to knock it out of the park. First, know your audience. What are their interests, their needs, and their expectations? Tailoring your presentation to your audience can help them keep engaged and interested in what you have to say. Second, practice, practice, practice. Rehearsing your presentation can help you feel more confident and prepared, and can also help you identify any areas that may need improvement. Third, make sure your visual aids are on point. Whether it's slides, handouts, or props, your visual aids should be clear, concise, and relevant to your message. Fourth, be mindful of your body language and your tone of voice. These non-verbal cues can communicate a lot to your audience, so make sure you're projecting confidence and enthusiasm. Fifth, be flexible. Sometimes things don't go according to plan, and that's okay. Be prepared to adapt and make adjustments on the fly, if necessary. And finally, don't forget to have fun. Presentations can be nerve-wracking, but they can also be a chance to showcase your knowledge, creativity, and personality. Embrace the opportunity to connect with your audience and share your message. So there you have it. Whether you're giving a formal presentation or just chatting with colleagues over coffee, these tips can help you prepare for a successful presentation. Remember to be confident, engaging, and authentic, and your audience will be sure to take notice. Good luck. Section 2. Beyond boredom, ways to keep your audience engaged. Keeping your audience engaged throughout your presentation can be a challenge, but it's also essential to making sure your message gets across. Here are some tips to help you engage and captivate your audience. 1. Use your vocal style to your advantage. Varying your pitch, tone, and speed can help keep your audience engaged and interested in what you have to say. For example, you might raise your voice to emphasize a key point, or slow down your pace to create a sense of suspense. Number 2, pay attention to your body language. Your posture, gestures, and facial expressions can all communicate a lot to your audience. For example, leaning forward can signal that you're eager to engage with your audience, while nodding your head can convey agreement and understanding. Number 3, use multimedia to enhance your presentation. Visual aids like slides, videos, and images can help break up your presentation and keep your audience engaged. Just be sure to use them sparingly and only when they truly add value to your message. Number 4, create opportunities for interaction. Depending on the context of your presentation, you might consider incorporating activities, polls, or discussion questions to get your audience actively involved. This can help keep their attention focused on your message and create a sense of investment in what you're saying. Number 5, use humour and storytelling to create a connection. Sharing personal anecdotes or using humour to lighten the mood can help your audience feel more comfortable and engaged. Just be sure to keep your humour appropriate for your audience and avoid anything that might be offensive or insensitive. Number 6, use props or demonstrations. Bringing in a physical object or performing a demonstration can help illustrate your points and make your presentation more memorable. For example, if you're talking about a product, you might want to bring in a prototype or use a live demonstration to show how it works. Number 7, finally, consider using some more unconventional methods to engage your audience. For example, you might use music or sound effects to create a mood or incorporate elements of surprise or suspense to keep your audience on the edge of their seats. In the end, the key to keeping your audience engaged is to be creative, confident, and authentic. By connecting with your audience on a personal level and using a variety of engagement techniques, you can ensure that your message is heard loud and clear. So go out there and rock your next presentation. Section 3. Presentation phrases. Hear how to say some key phrases. In the last 2 sections, I focused on presentations and provided a few tips to help you make your next presentation the best ever. Now, I want to help you with the pronunciation of some key phrases that you may need in your next presentation or talk. There's over 50 phrases which I'd like you to listen to, and then repeat them in your own RP British accent. If you can, record yourself as you go along, and then play it back and compare your version with mine. So let's take a listen. Key presentation phrases. Let me start by introducing myself. Today I'll be discussing. As you can see on the screen. Moving on to the next point. Let's take a closer look at. In summary. Are there any questions so far? I'd like to draw your attention to. Now, let me illustrate this point with an example. To put it simply. As a result. Let me explain further. As I mentioned earlier, this leads us to the next topic, which is. Let me clarify. This graph, chart, diagram shows. This graph, chart, diagram shows to give you an idea of. I'd like to emphasise that. Moving on to my next point. In conclusion. Are there any queries at this point? Let's delve deeper into. To summarise what we've covered so far. As you may be aware, to illustrate my point. Now, let's consider. This brings us to the heart of the matter. Before we move on, are there any questions? To put it differently, as a consequence, I'd like to elaborate on this topic. This is a crucial point to remember. Now, let's shift our focus to. Let's take a step back and review. I hope this gives you a better understanding of. To conclude. Do you have any doubts or concerns so far? As you can see from the evidence, let me illustrate this with a real life example. Now, let's move on to our final topic. I'd like to begin by giving some background information on. As we can see from the data, to expand on this point, let's explore this in more detail. As we've seen throughout this presentation, let me highlight a key point. This brings up an important question. To summarise what I've just covered, I'd like to take a moment to address. As we come to a close, welcome to. My name is, and I am the. Thank you for coming today. I'm looking forward to talking with you today about. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to quickly introduce myself. I am from, on behalf of, I'd like to welcome you today. For those of you who don't already know me, my name is, and I'm the. Hi everyone, I'm glad to be here with you today. Now let's get started. I hope these audio clips are helpful. Now you can get hours more audio and video practice in the British Accent Bundle to help you perfect your RP British English accent. Go to learningbritishaccent.com/bundle and don't forget, get it soon before the price goes back up. Section 4. Once upon a presentation, the magic of storytelling and analogies. Storytelling and analogies can be powerful tools for engaging your audience and helping them understand complex ideas. By presenting information in a relatable and memorable way, you can make your presentation more effective and persuasive. Here's some tips for incorporating storytelling and analogies into your presentation. Number 1. Start with a strong opening story or analogy. This can help grab your audience attention and set the tone for the rest of your presentation. For example, you might start with a personal story that illustrates the importance of your topic, or use an analogy to help your audience understand a complex concept. Number 2, use these stories to illustrate key points. Instead of just presenting dry facts and figures, try to weave in stories and analogies that illustrate your points in a more engaging and memorable way. For example, you might use a story to illustrate the importance of teamwork, or an analogy to explain a technical process. Thirdly, make these stories relevant to your audience. To make your presentation truly impactful, it's important to connect your stories and analogies to your audience's experiences and interests. Try to use examples and analogies that your audience can relate to and that illustrate the relevance of your topic to their lives. Number 4, use a mix of personal and third-party stories. Personal stories and analogies can be very effective, but it's also important to use third-party stories to add credibility and depth to your presentation. For example, you might use a customer success story to illustrate the effectiveness of your product or your service. Number 5, keep your stories and analogies concise and focused. While stories and analogies can be powerful tools, it's important not to let them overwhelm your presentation. Keep your stories focused on the key points you're trying to make, and try and avoid tangents or irrelevant details. Number 6, practice your delivery. Delivering a great story or analogy requires more than just good content. It also requires strong delivery. Practice your delivery focusing on your tone, your pace, and your timing to help make your stories and analogies more engaging and impactful. And number 7, finally, remember that less is often more. While stories can be powerful tools, it's important not to overuse them. Use them sparingly and strategically, focusing on the points where they can have the most impact. In the end, incorporating storytelling and analogies into your presentation can help it more engaging, more memorable, and more effective. By following these tips, this can help ensure your presentation is a fantastic success. Thanks for listening to this week's show. I hope the list of 50 presentation phrases will give you confidence in your RP pronunciation. Whatever speaking engagements you have this weekend, I hope you can enjoy them. Until next time, don't forget to get the British Accent Bundle for its low price, and I'll see you here next time. Bye for now.